Now the dreaded rut lockdown, have you heard of it? You know, a lot of people go back and forth on if there's even a rut lockdown, why there is a rut lockdown, when it actually occurs. Let me make some sense out of the rut lockdown, because there's a very logical, common sense reasoning for why the rut lockdown takes place, and eventually that affects how you hunt it, where you hunt, and why. We'll talk about my favorite stand and what that details in the end for the rut lockdown, and why that relates to all of this that we're going to talk about. The rut lockdown does exist. Let's make some sense of it. This is really important. It's the rut timeline. We have the beginning of the rut right here, and then we have the peak of the rut right here, and then it goes back down again. And this is just that trickle. This is that pre-rut. There's a doe or two coming in. Bucks are getting excited. The scent's in the air. Those mature bucks especially know the game is on, and they're ready for it. They really want this to happen, obviously, and they've experienced a few seasons, and they're going to put down a lot of rubs and scrapes. They're going to fight. That's this period right here. But all of a sudden it happens. It's not that all the does are coming in at once. Think about, you complain about buck to doe ratios, everyone does. Meaning everyone says, we see 10 does to every buck. I mean, I can honestly say out here on our land, we're actually seeing more bucks than does, but that's how we manage. We have does and fawns out here, but we have a greater number of bucks that we get pictures of. We can identify those bucks. We might have a core group of does. They don't travel very far. They're residents. They're here all the time. And then we have those bucks that are coming, going. Some are here all the time. Some are here a couple weeks here and there. And some we get a couple pictures of, and that's it. But when you count up the actual antler bucks compared to the does we have on the land, we get a lot more number, a lot higher number of bucks. But bottom line is, your area might be 10 to 1. Your area might be 5 to 1, 3 to 1 that you actually witness. In nature, it's impossible to go over, I think the number is 3.2 does to every buck, because does are always having 50% buck fawns, or 51%, whatever that number is. So bottom line is, you can never get over that in an actual herd, meaning that over a large scale, because if you're seeing 10 does for every buck, that means someone else is seeing probably 1 buck for every doe. So that's the way it works in the neighborhood. There's very few places that hold those mature bucks, but it does exist. And imagine all those does coming in at the peak time. You think, well, that's the time that the bucks are on lockdown. They all have it's right here. All these does that are start coming into place, because there's a lot more does and bucks. You only need 25% of those does to come into heat. 1/3, and almost every buck in the area gets invited to the party. That's this period right here. Some properties have a lot of bucks on them. Some property have a lot of does on them. What ends up happening is this first part of the rut, you have the pre-rut, and let's say that starts, and roughly 7 to 10 days later, this is when that rut lockdown takes place. All those bucks all of a sudden find a doe that they can breed. And it's pretty easy to do so. After that though, the peak rut, even more does are coming in, but not all properties have a lot of does. Some have way more bucks, some have more does. There's always in between, and then a lot of hunting pressure is applied. So what happens? Bucks start to move. When they're moving, and they're moving great distances and looking, it's not that they're finding does right away. I always look at it like that first doe during the rut lockdown, easy to find. The second doe, a little bit harder. Third doe, a lot harder. Fourth doe, and did you know the average buck breeds 2 to 4 does during the primary rut? Just 2 to 4. They're not breeding one every day. The oldest bucks don't get it. They found young bucks breed, older bucks. The point is that first buck, pretty easy. That's rut lockdown. Second buck, harder. Third buck. So what does that mean? During the peak rut, they're moving around a lot. Folks, it's time for the rut, and that means you need to check out my rut web class. It'll help you navigate the entire rut. But more importantly, QuietKat is one of our important partners. And through that partnership, they've offered to clients, people that contact us, an incredible discount and opportunity to buy a new QuietKat. Look for an email that you can contact, and the contact information in the description, but I really want to pass that off to you. We don't do that very often, but I want to make sure you guys don't miss out if you're looking and in the market for a new QuietKat. That's the rut lockdown, meaning a lot of does are coming in, every buck gets invited to the party, and all of a sudden you look at, like, they're not even moving around. A few fawns here and there, a doe. Why quiet down so much? For us around here, that's about October 31st or November 1st. And I'm not saying there's not good rutting activity. We'll talk about that. But you don't see as much activity. That could be the 4th of November around here, 5th, 6th. In your area, if you're in Kansas, that could be the 10th, the 15th. If you're in southern Ohio, that could be the 10th, the 15th, somewhere around in there. But bottom line is, it's after that pre-rut takes place, and all of a sudden, a bunch of does come in, and the rut lockdown makes it look like for just a few days. Being that they can tell a doe's coming in a couple days in advance, and it takes a couple days to breed, and so you're looking at a 3, 4, 5 day window. And then it's random. Bucks have to start looking, searching, moving around, and that's when you get into more traditional rutting activity. It's what you expect. You expect to see not much, but there's hope. This isn't like bucks aren't going to move. So how I hunt this is I don't like to set up purely on a bedding area, purely on a food source. You want to be in that perfect X in your area, meaning between food and bedding. You never know when a doe, and I like sitting all day. You're not just sitting morning bedding, because then as it gets closer to the afternoon and dark, then deer are all moving to food sources. I want to be in a food source area in the afternoon. I want to be in a bedding area in the morning. But at the same time, this is a great time just to sit all day in a transition area between all of it. And that's why I talk about my favorite stand is an area where, and I have 2 or 3 in that fit this, and I'm thinking over in Wisconsin, where we have food down low. Neighbor has food like 1/4 mile in from their property. So you get in this area where food's on either side, 400 or 500 yards. We have multiple bedding areas in different directions, and you get in these stands that we actually see deer coming from our food or theirs in the morning. And then we also see deer coming from bedding areas or going to the other food sources. So deer going back and forth, whether they're going to distant food on ours or the neighbors, or traveling between bedding areas on ours or the neighbors, side to side as well. So you have all these bedding area and food sources. It's almost like you have the stand in the middle, and then you have all these features around it, and you just go bedding, food, bedding, food, bedding, food, all the way around it. And so you never know when a deer is going from bedding to bedding, food to food, food to bedding, and back and forth, and you're in that perfect X of movement. You have a lot of funnel system in there where it's thick cover for a buck to cruise through. Think daylight. You know, that mature buck doesn't necessarily want to go through open hardwoods or open fields. Yes, you see them deer in the rut, but that's a small percentage of the time. I want to be in an X of movement where it's thick, it's between bedding and food, and hopefully multiple sources of bedding and food areas. So that would be my favorite location. Those great areas to sit. It's between everything. The rut lockdown is real. The timing, you know, like I said, for Wisconsin, southeast Minnesota, it starts taking place somewhere 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th of November. There's that period of time in there where it just seems like every buck just stopped moving. The scrapes aren't being hit because they're with does. And then all of a sudden things start to open up a little bit more. And that's traditional peak rutting activity. I see that the deer really moving hard, 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere around in there through the 10th, 11th, 12th. And then it shuts down like crazy. And that's that backside right here. So it's going down. And fewer does are coming in per day at that time. And then when that happens, a lot of people have been in the woods. They've been pushing deer. Deer getting used to a lot of hunting pressure on every single property because everyone hunts a rut. And that pushes, to me, a lot of deer nocturnal. Those mature bucks know how to avoid hunting pressure. So it's not that does aren't being bred on the 15th of November. It's just a lot of breeding starting to take place at night unless you really, really manage your hunting pressure. You'll see the more you manage your hunting pressure, the more it appears like the rut lasts a little bit longer. And if you don't have mature bucks in the area, you might be looking at it like, boy, the rut hasn't even started, and it's November 4th. Because you missed the pre-rut because you didn't have older bucks. The younger bucks don't leave a lot of rub sign or scrape sign, rutting sign in general. There's just not much by younger bucks. It exponentially goes up the older a buck becomes. So a lot more sign. So if you don't have older bucks in your land, then don't expect to not only see the pre-rut, but why would you see the rut lockdown? You're still waiting. You're looking at it like the rut hasn't even started, and here it's already into the getting close to the peak rut, and you think it hasn't even begun, and it's been going on for 10 days, 12 days. So plan for that. Understand what's going on in the woods. To me, this is a common sense way to understand the rut lockdown, and especially the pre-rut, rut lockdown, then the peak rut, then the post-rut. We'll talk about all of them, and I hope that helps you hang your tag on a giant during the rut lockdown. What you can expect too, I would mention this, you don't see a lot of movement, but you never know when that big mature buck might come off a doe and start looking for another one. That's why you want to be in that perfect X of movement all day long. I appreciate you guys watching the YouTube channel, but I don't know if everyone knows everything that we have to offer, whether it's on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, our website, or WHS Wildlife Blends, our seed company. Also Instagram you can check out. I'm very active on Instagram, putting strategies on there, photos of what we do every day. Much more active there than Facebook. But our seed, web classes, books, clients, articles. I have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, everything whitetail strategy. Of course, we have hats on there, and then make sure to check us out on Instagram again. But lots of stuff to offer. We're always coming out with new things, and this isn't the end of it. We have more things coming soon. Make sure to check us out.